the exciting second episode of Doc Holliday in Dodge City, we explored the fascinating lives of legendary figures such as Kate Elder, taking our listeners on an exhilarating journey through the vibrant social scene of Dodge City's sporting community. Imagine a world teeming with the lively spirit of cattle traders and saloons, where Doc Holliday skillfully navigated the complex dynamics of friendships and rivalry. This episode captures the raw energy and adventure that defined a time when every moment brimmed with potential excitement, drawing you into the captivating tales of these iconic individuals. Join us in this episode of Wild West Podcast as we celebrate the allure of Doc Holliday's remarkable story and his dynamic life in a town where every encounter was a thrilling opportunity waiting to unfold. In 1878, Dodge City exuded a laid-back and easygoing atmosphere where the pace of life was leisurely and a sense of tolerance prevailed among its residents. For a while, tranquility reigned, and the local Times proudly boasted about the remarkably light court docket in late June, reflecting a period of relative calm. However, beneath the serene surface, incidents occasionally disrupted the peace. The newspapers highlighted concerns over gaslight robberies, the alarming nighttime muggings targeting both citizens and unsuspecting visitors. One outspoken critic even proposed that local police officers ought to be mandated to patrol the city streets during the dark hours rather than spending excessive time in the vibrant dance halls where they often lingered. The Ford County Globe opined that if less protection was given to the pimp, the bawdy house loafer, and the robber, and more protection given to visitors and others engaged in legitimate business, it would be much better for the community. And this only days after the Globe had said, Wyatt Earp is doing his duty as assistant marshal in a very creditable manner, adding new laurels to his splendid record every day. In July, tensions mounted dramatically, culminating in noteworthy shifts within the community. On the morning of July 13th, as dawn broke, the atmosphere of the Long Branch Saloon became charged with animosity. A figure known as Limping Tom, a low, skulking vagabond whose unkempt appearance and pronounced limp set him apart from the other patrons, found himself the target of relentless teasing and merciless harassment from the rowdy crowd. The boisterous laughter and jeers reverberated throughout the establishment, casting a somber shadow over its otherwise lively atmosphere. Infuriated by the mockery, Tom suddenly sprang to the bar where H.T. McCarty was standing, seized McCarty's pistol from his side, and after briefly brandishing it, fired a shot that hit McCarty in the right groin, severing the femoral artery. Recently appointed as a Deputy United States Marshal, McCarty was renowned for his unwavering integrity and dedication to his new role in law enforcement. In contrast, Limping Tom, a camp cook for the Shiner Brothers outfit, led a life marked by intrigue and a colorful past. His true name was Thomas O'Haron, but he was also known by the alias Thomas Roach. Despite the tumultuous circumstances surrounding the incident, McCarty was not implicated in any harassment related to the volatile atmosphere. Despite all efforts to save his life, McCarty succumbed to his injuries within an hour of the incident. Conversely, Limping Tom survived the ordeal. However, his participation in the event resulted in legal repercussions, ultimately leading to a 12-year and 3-month prison sentence for his involvement in the crime. With the recent killing of another lawman, occurring shortly after the murder of Ed Masterson, cast a heavy pall over the town of Dodge. The atmosphere was thick with tension as the police force intensified its efforts to control the drovers, implementing stricter regulations and displaying limited patience for the boisterous behavior of cowboys. Just a day after the shocking shooting of McCarty, Wyatt Earp found himself in the midst of a heated dispute. The conflict involved C.C. Peppard, a prominent rancher known for his erratic behavior from Comanche County, and Anna Slater, a local prostitute whose presence frequently provoked trouble. The intensity of the moment mirrored the escalating unrest in Dodge, as its residents grappled with the treacherous landscape of lawlessness and conflict. Robert M. Wright later remarked, "Pepperd was one whom the officers disliked to see come to Dodge. Invariably, rows began then, and he was in all of them. Doc Holliday may even have known him, for he reportedly had killed a man in Fort Griffin." In this particular situation, Pepperd found himself in legal trouble, ultimately pleading guilty to the charges that led to a financial penalty. Remarkably, news of his arrest managed to evade the local newspapers, but the incident seemed to exacerbate underlying tensions within the community, particularly directed towards Wyatt Earp. In the aftermath of Pepperd's legal woes, the police force in Dodge City ramped up their enforcement efforts, leading to a surge of activity that engulfed the town. Authorities began cracking down on various groups, including drovers, sex workers, and gamblers, as part of a strategy to assert a firmer control over the increasingly chaotic atmosphere. The drovers, who transported cattle and played an essential role in the local economy, grew increasingly resentful of this tightening grip on their activities. They began to push back against the police efforts, testing the boundaries of what they could get away with. On July 25th, in a display of this renewed enforcement, Wyatt Earp arrested Charles Reed for the offense of unlawfully discharging a pistol, responding to the growing concerns regarding public safety and gun-related incidents. On the same day, another noted lawman, James Masterson, apprehended K.M. May for a similar charge, reflecting a concerted effort among the officers to restore order to the town during this turbulent period. These actions underscored the escalating struggle between law enforcement and those who lived outside the law, as tensions in Dodge City reached a boiling point. At precisely 3 o'clock in the early hours of July 26th, those tensions boiled over. A small group of drovers, part of Toby Driscoll's crew, including prominent figures like George Hoy, Joe Day, Harrison French, and Charles French, galloped past Ben Springer's newly opened Comique Theater. In a reckless display of bravado, they brandished their firearms and discharged rounds into the building as they sped by. Inside the Comique, the atmosphere was a chaotic whirlwind of confusion and alarm, the sudden gunfire shattering the relative tranquility of the night. Eddie Foy, who was performing at the time, vividly described the scene. Everybody dropped to the floor at once, according to custom. Bat Masterson was just in the act of dealing in a game of Spanish Monte with Doc Holliday, and I was impressed with the instantaneous manner in which they flattened out like pancakes on the floor. I thought I was pretty agile myself, but these fellows had me beaten by seconds at that trick. The firing kept up until it seemed to me that the assailants had put hundreds of shots through the building. They shot through the wall, as well as windows, for a big .45 bullet would penetrate those plank walls as if they had been little more than paper. The firing had been going on for a minute or so when we heard a volley from another quarter, this time out on Main Street. Some of the city police and deputy sheriffs were attacking the gunfighters in flank. When the gunfire erupted, Wyatt Earp, leaning casually against a weathered awning post outside the establishment, was instantly caught off guard. The air was filled with the deafening sound of gunshots, and without hesitation, Wyatt sprang into action, firing back at the cowboys with unwavering precision. James Masterson joined him, and a group of valiant citizens rushed outside to defend their town. Havoc erupted near the bridge, where George Hoy, a likable young man with a troubled past as a fugitive from Texas due to cattle theft, was struck and tumbled from his horse, clutching his wounded arm. As bullets whizzed past, Foy later recounted. The remarkable aspect of the entire incident was that, apart from a few minor scratches and some perforated clothing, no one in the dance hall sustained any injuries. Tragically, Hoy didn't share the same luck. He succumbed to complications from his injury on August 21st, surrounded by his devoted companions, Day and the French boys, who remained by his side until the very end. Despite the violence and chaos of the confrontation, no charges were ever brought against any of the cowboys involved in the altercation. As Doc immersed himself in the vibrant gambling world and the lively saloon scene, he found a sense of belonging that had eluded him in previous cities like Dallas, Fort Griffin, and Denver. The camaraderie extended by figures such as William H. Harris, Shockley Beeson, and Bat Masterson, and their eclectic circle of associates, enveloped him like a warm embrace. In this newfound community, Doc experienced acceptance and understanding on a profound level, a stark contrast to the isolation he had felt elsewhere. He had finally discovered a congenial environment where he could thrive, and with that, he appeared ready to put down roots and call Dodge City home. Then on August 6, 1878, the town council unexpectedly enacted a series of stringent ordinances that not only prohibited gambling and prostitution, but also revealed a more sinister motive: to regulate these activities through fines rather than completely eliminate them. This regulatory approach allowed authorities to selectively remove undesirable individuals from the burgeoning town. However, the consequences of these new rules were significant. The cost of engaging in gambling rose steeply, burdening even the most established players and patrons of the vice. Moreover, as the cattle season drew to a close, the gambling opportunities dwindled, leading to a sense of stagnation, which in turn affected Doc Holliday's means for economic prosperity. According to legend, the fateful encounter that forged the profound bond between Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday transpired in late August. Earp would later reflect on the reason for this allegiance with pointed clarity. I am a friend of Doc Holliday because when I served as City Marshal of Dodge City, Kansas, he came to my aid and saved my life when I was cornered by a band of ruthless outlaws. In a more theatrical recounting, penned by a ghostwriter, Earp vividly recounted an intense moment of peril. Doc, ever vigilant, had noticed a man poised to draw his weapon against Earp from behind. "Look out, Wyatt!" he yelled, warning echoing against the dusty streets. But even as the words erupted from his lips, Doc swiftly unholstered his own gun. The sharp crack of his pistol echoed like thunder, silencing the would-be assailant before he could even take aim. This narrative of Doc's assistance to Wyatt has been recounted and narrated in various forms, yet lacks historical verification. One such account originates from the myths of the era and is presented as follows. As the hot sun descended in the belated summer sky of 1878, casting a golden glow over the dusty streets of Dodge City, Doc Holliday sat at a Monte table, completely engrossed in the game. However, his keen eyes, which were not solely fixed on the cards before him, darted restlessly outside the window, swiftly analyzing the unfolding events beyond. With a sudden spark of urgency, Doc turned to Frank Loving, the dealer, and inquired, "Have you a six-shooter?" Loving grasped two guns from under the table and promptly handed it to Doc. Grasping both guns and concealing them under the guise of his topcoat, Doc was no longer hesitant in his movements. He burst forth through the door onto the sidewalk, his presence commanding and determined. Stepping into the fray of the crowd, Doc raised both guns high and bellowed, "Throw up your hands." The unexpected demand sent ripples of surprise through the onlookers, momentarily halting their animated chatter and drawing their attention away from whatever mischief was afoot. Wyatt Earp stated afterwards in his memoirs, "Seizing the opportunity, I swiftly drew my own revolver, adrenaline rushing through my veins. With the element of surprise on our side, we moved to contain the crowd, swiftly arresting those whose misdeeds had been brewing moments before. The entire group was corralled and escorted to jail, where they would spend a restless night behind bars, facing fines before their eventual release the following day. This encounter, charged with intensity and danger, forged an unexpected bond between Doc Holliday and me. From that day forward, I counted him as a steadfast friend, forever marked by the events of that fateful evening. The newspapers from that era notably omitted any direct reference to either Earp or Holliday in relation to the incident outlined by Wyatt. However, at least 3 notable events could align with the incident in question, especially considering the local press's tendency to refer to officers in vague terms without revealing their identities. The first of these incidents occurred in late August and aligns quite closely with Earp's memory, which firmly places the occurrence within that month. Another shooting affair occurred on the south side Saturday night. It appears that one of the cowboys, becoming intoxicated and quarrelsome, undertook to take possession of the bar in the Kamik. To this, the bartender objected, and a row ensued. Our policemen interfered and had some difficulty in handling their man. Several cattlemen then engaged in the broil, and in the excitement some of them were bruised on the head with 6-shooters. Several shots were accidentally fired, which created general confusion among the crowd of persons present. We are glad to chronicle the fact that none were seriously hurt and nobody shot. We, however, cannot help but regret the too ready use of pistols in all rows of such character, and would like to see a greater spirit of harmony exist between our officers and cattlemen, so that snarling coyotes and killers could make their own fights, without interesting or dragging good men into them.
Thinking about getting into registered livestock but don't have a ranching background? You are not alone. On From the Pasture with Hired Hand, we talk with breeders from all walks of life, some born into it, others learning as they go. Hear their stories, mistakes, and hard-earned lessons about raising pedigree livestock, navigating genetics, and making a name in their industry. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts or visit hiredhandsoftware.com and stay connected.
The second incident occurred on the evening of September 19, 1878, and it fits with Earp's insistence that the incident involved Toby Driscoll and Ed Morrison. On September 14th, the Times issued a special edition announcing that the Northern Cheyenne had fled their reservation in the Indian Territory in a desperate attempt to return to their traditional home in Montana. Over the next several days, rumors spread rapidly that the Indians were killing cattle and drovers and raiding homesteads. The Cheyennes were especially interested in horses, and on the morning of September 16th, they ran off 55 head from the camp of the Driscoll brothers. The following day, the Driscoll brothers, Doc, Tony Day, and close to 20 other cowboys joined Captain William C. Hempel's company of cavalry in pursuit of the Cheyenne. After a sharp engagement on Wednesday, September 18th, the cowboys showed up in Dodge, and the following morning, Hempel arrived with his company. Later that same day, September 19th, before the cavalry and the cowboys took the field again, 2 incidents occurred. There was a scrimmage Thursday night between the officers and the party that were going on the Indian hunt. Several shots were fired. One man carries a bandaged head, and a soldier was severely wounded in the leg. A disgraceful row occurred in the afternoon in which it is said that the officers failed to appear. These occurrences are the subject of much comment on the conduct of the officers. The timing and circumstances of the Thursday night scrimmage fits with Earp's recollections. First, Earp said that the incident occurred at the time of the Dull Knife Raid, as the Indian outbreak was called in Kansas. Second, most of the men involved were from the crew of Toby and Bud Driscoll, men with a grudge against Dodge City's police over the Hoy shooting. Third, Though the account differs from Stuart Lake's version, one man was in fact wounded in the fracas. The ongoing panic surrounding the Indian scare significantly undermined law enforcement efforts in the city. On September 24th, the Globe reported with concern that no less than half a dozen shooting incidents took place in our city over the past week. While the frequency of these violent encounters caused alarm within the community, the newspaper was relieved to note that fortunately no serious injuries had been reported. The most recent altercation occurred just the night before the article was published, highlighting an escalating atmosphere of tension. The editorial observation pointedly remarked that it seemed more perilous to traverse the streets of the city, marked by gunfire, than to confront the supposed threat of being scalped by Native Americans on the expansive plains. This stark comparison underscored the growing lawlessness and the fears that gripped urban life amid the broader social anxieties of the time. The exact timing of Doc and Kate Elder's departure from Dodge City, for all the vast and uncertain frontier, remains ambiguous, though Kate speculated that it might have been during the late days of November or the early weeks of December. Their choice to leave was shaped by a combination of pivotal circumstances. Doc would later assert that his decision to leave Dodge was partly prompted by a false accusation of burglary. On December 11, 1878, an attempt was made to break into Jacob Collar's store, though reports failed to link Doc to the incident. Nevertheless, the shadows of suspicion loomed large, especially after Doc's association with Charles Wright became known. Charles was infamous in Dodge for his crooked faro games, often referred to as brace games, and he was a man with a reputation that sparked wariness among many townsfolk. From a lineage of Canadian descent, Charles Wright was not just any gambler. He was related to the esteemed Robert M. Wright, a prominent businessman and one of the founding figures of Dodge City. The whispers of intrigue grew louder when money mysteriously vanished from the accounts of Wright and Beverly's store, casting a shadow of doubt over Charles. In a desperate bid to deflect blame, Charles pointed the finger at Doc, claiming he was the thief. Robert, trusting his relative's word, accepted this narrative and cast his blame upon Doc. Faced with the formidable influence of Robert Wright, a figure of considerable clout in the community, Doc felt he had no choice but to leave town to sidestep the brewing conflict. This incident did not end quietly. It worsened the already escalating tensions between Robert Wright and Wyatt Earp, who bristled at the unjust accusations directed toward his friend. The air in Dodge City was thick with intrigue, suspicion, and the looming threat of conflict, compelling Doc and Kate to seek new horizons beyond its troubled borders. Determined yet weary, he and Kate boarded the train bound for Colorado. The hollow rattle of Doc's cough echoed hauntingly through the crisp fall air, a chilling reminder of his deteriorating health as the first snows descended upon Dodge City, blanketing it in a soft white shroud. His face, frequently pallid and strained, betrayed the toll the changing season took on him. As they awaited the departure of the first train to Trinidad, the anticipation hung heavy in the frosty air. When it finally arrived, it wound its way up the rugged terrain, twisting and turning over the point of rocks, offering only fleeting glimpses of the beauty to come. However, once they arrived, Doc's condition took a drastic turn, forcing them to postpone their journey for 10 days. Yet despite their progress, they were still far from Las Vegas, New Mexico. With winter's icy grip tightening and snow blanketing the mountains during a particularly severe December, Doc and Kate found themselves at a crossroads, deeply contemplating their next move amidst the swirling flurries and bleak landscapes that surrounded them. that's it for now. We have some thrilling news to share. Wild West Podcast is taking your listening experience up a notch with the launch of exclusive content. For only $3 a month, you'll gain access to premium material packed with in-depth analysis and expert insights into the fascinating history we love to explore. Your support is vital in helping us uncover the real stories of the American West. Join us on this incredible journey. Subscribe today. Don't forget, you can catch all our episodes on popular platforms like Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, and at wildwestpodcast.buzzsprout.com. Please connect with us on Facebook at facebook.com/wildwestpodcast and dive into our YouTube channel. Get ready for an unforgettable adventure as we take you deep into the heart of the Wild West in our upcoming podcast series, all about the legendary Wyatt Earp. This exhilarating 3-part journey will trace Wyatt's fascinating life, starting from his early days in Peoria and making stops in Ellsworth and Wichita, Kansas, before we follow him to the storied streets of Dodge City. As we explore his remarkable transformation from a horse thief and con artist into a celebrated lawman, you'll witness how Wyatt became a symbol of justice on the rugged frontier. As the unwavering marshal of his town, he dedicated himself to the mission of restoring order, ensuring that schoolhouses and churches emerge in the community, overshadowing the chaos of gambling halls and booming saloons. Join us as we unravel the captivating story of a man who epitomized Western survival and fought for a civilized society in the untamed expanses of the West. Trust us, you won't want to miss this thrilling ride.